Hi, I'm Nicole Webb Bodie, partner at Healthcare Plus Solutions Group. I had the pleasure to sit down with Quint Studer, our co-founder, for an insightful look back at the history of what has become the focus for so many organizations in the industry: experience and engagement. Whether you've known Quint, worked with him, read his books, or even heard him speak, you undoubtedly know he has been called one of the best friends to healthcare. If you don't know Quint, you likely know and use many of the tools that he created and implemented at healthcare organizations across the country. Please enjoy this short clip from our conversation. To watch the full video, you can visit our website and our learning library at www.healthcareplussg.com. 20 years ago, you wrote Hardwiring Excellence.
Yeah, and that came about because I'd like to go a little bit further back to talk about how we started, because I think that was really important. At our session in Chicago, there were people from Memorial Healthcare System in Hollywood, Florida, Del Norte Community in St. Charles, Sarasota Hospital from Sarasota, and we were very, very fortunate because I didn't want to just speak, because I knew I could speak and you could make a good living speaking, and again, wonderful speakers, but that doesn't thrill me. It's nice to have an impact, but what if you speak and you don't have impact? Mm-hmm. So I would, again, because I was speaking, would get a note from someone that said, it sounded great, but we aren't doing anything with it. So I decided the consulting had to come with the speaking to make it worthwhile. And we got real lucky. I mean, we just got lucky. We got these clients. Of course, these early movers want to do it. Mm-hmm. They're all in. And then Sharp Healthcare, and that was a big win. Sharp Healthcare called me, and they were going to implement something called the Sharp Experience. This was early on, and they met with me, and it was really geared toward patient experience. And I had learned enough that you've got to do the other components of physician and employee. So again, I just recommended to them that maybe they expand it from patient experience. The Sharp Experience should be about physicians, employees, and patients. They actually took what we've taken, our whole philosophy was, let's create a great place for employees to work, patients to get care, physicians to practice. So Sharp really was cool, because Sharp had multiple hospitals, they had a huge physician component, they were a capitated managed care component, so their success was really neat. And probably still one of the thrills of my lifetime was I'm sitting in a little office in Gulf Breeze, and somebody says, Fred Loop is on the line. Now, Fred Loop, the president of Cleveland Clinic, this is sort of like sitting there and being a high school basketball coach and them telling you Michael Jordan would like to talk to you or something like that. I'm saying, oh my gosh. Well, Fred had been at a large conference and I had spoken, and he's a cardiovascular surgeon, very quiet, and he's the one that saved Cleveland Clinic. If you look at the history, but he's so quiet and introverted, he would never take credit for anything. He wrote one of the best books ever called Leadership in Medicine and would not promote it because he felt it was self-promotion. So he called me up and he said, Quint, we really want to work with you. And I was a little intimidated. And I said, Dr. Loop, you're really, really, really good. And again, good people want to get better. He said, yeah, but we want to be the best. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't for a percentile. It wasn't for an award. He truly believed, because he'd get frustrated that he knew they were providing great clinical care, but sometimes the patients wouldn't perceive it that way. Mm-hmm. So he actually gave me a shirt, and it was Cleveland Clinic and Studer creating world-class care. And he's deceased now, but one of the great gifts I had, and he was all in. When I'd come, he'd meet with me every time. In fact, if you read my first book, one of the stories is I was going to meet with Fred, and he couldn't meet with me, which is really unusual. And he wrote me a note. And he said, I apologize. His best friend in life was dying at Cleveland Clinic, and he was holding his hand. And then if you read early on in Hardwiring Excellence, you'll read the story of Fred Loop. So that gave us credibility. You get Sharp, you get Cleveland Clinic. This is not just a thing to put in the back room. This is a thing to put in the front of the organization.
So when you decided you wanted to go beyond speaking, go to coaching, how did those that maybe weren't ready for the coaching, what did you do for those people that still needed help, but they couldn't have you come in yet?
Well, what was happening at the time, I was speaking, and we were calling it Take You and Your Organization to the Next Level. And we really knew that 50% of the people minimally coming were going to come and take it and try to do it on their own. You know, the biggest competitor of any business in healthcare is we can do this on our own. And that's in all fields. And we wanted them to do well. So we did everything we could. I even had a presentation that said, if you're going out on your own, here are the things that about 90% of the people, that we worked with later on, tried it on their own. And they didn't have success, so they would call us. So we started knowing what doesn't work. So we would even say to them, if you're going to do it on your own, here are 4 or 5 things. It's like we learned at Cleveland Clinic, actually, Fred wanted us to do videos to help scale it. So we did our must-have videos in the Cleveland Clinic. And they invested to create these videos, and he said, you can use them to other hospitals too. So we did everything we could for people to go out and do it on their own. So one day, a person came up to me and said, do you have a book? Because people like guidelines, blueprints. And I said, no, I don't have a book. And he said, you should write a book. Well, first of all, I can't spell. My sentence structure's horrendous. And it's easier for me to speak than to the fact that I write now today just amazes me. I mean, if you told my high school English teacher that I write books, they would be stunned. And so what happened was they said, you should write a book. And I said, I don't have a book. I don't have a book. And they said, you really need to write one. And then they tried to tell me why. And they said, if you wrote a book, you could get more speaking engagements. I said, I'm already pretty busy. They said, everything was I should write a book for me. And it didn't excite me. And then one day, a person said, what about that manager that's in a little hospital that doesn't have a lot of money, that can't afford to come hear you? Don't you want them to be better too? That's why I wrote Hardwiring Excellence.
To continue the impact for those.
Continue the impact for people that couldn't afford me, couldn't afford our company, couldn't afford to come to a conference. It was really detailed, sort of a how-to book.